Hey everybody, it's Ginger here with PetServices.Pro, a show for you and your pets. So if you're looking for what the best food is for your fish, then welcome. I'm going to show you some easy ways to know what is the best food to feed your fish without spending a lot of time or money to experiment to find what your fish will eat that is good for him too. I get that there's such a variety of fish foods out there and it could be very confusing, but don't worry because today I'm going to share with you some great ways to determine if you're feeding your fish the right thing. So let's jump into it. Why are there different types of fish foods available? Because there are different types of fish and other aquarium animals, but they basically fall into 4 categories: herbivores, insectivores, carnivores, and omnivores. So, herbivores eat plants. Example are the Blacostomus algae eater and the mystery snail. Insectivores eat bugs. The betta fish is an example. Carnivores eat meat. The Oscar is a carnivore. And omnivores eat all kinds of food. The African pygmy frog is an omnivore. What kinds of foods are available? Well, let's look at the forms of food readily available at pet stores. Frozen foods. You'll find these in the freezer section of the pet store. Some of them have a freezer section near the fish area. You'll find these contain worms, shrimp, fish, algae, and so on. Read the label. Some have multiple kinds in one container. I like this because I can choose to feed multiple kinds of food at a time. They are in separate cubes, not all mixed in one cube. They are whole foods with more complete nutrition and good for them, but they will take up space in your freezer and the remaining food must be removed from the tank after they have eaten all that they are going to. Freeze-dried foods. These are found on the fish food shelf in the aquarium section. These are more expensive, but very convenient and easy to store. The majority of freeze-dried fish food are bloodworms, brine shrimp, and other small animals which are great for carnivores, insectivores, and omnivores, but not great for herbivores. Live foods. These are a bit more of a specialty, but available. You'll need a place to keep them until you're ready to feed. These may be mealworms, small snails, fruit flies, brine shrimp, and feeder fish, and crickets for larger fish. Brine shrimp can be hatched from eggs and raised yourself in a jar. I know there are wonderful kits available on Amazon. Vegetables and algae. It's as simple as tossing in some leafy green veggies such as lettuce and spinach or a green bean. Regular raw, clean vegetables. Just take them out when the fish or snail or other aquarium member is done eating. Usually mystery snails and other algae feeders need to be supplemented with the vegetables because there just isn't enough algae in the tank to sustain them. But they will indeed help to keep the tank sides clean. To add extra algae, dried nori flakes are a good thing to try. You can find them in the Asian section of some grocery stores. Watch for salt. You don't want to get nori with added salt. Flaked food. This is the dried food you can find everywhere in the little jars. Most people feed this. It's easy to find and it's cheap. It's also simple and convenient. Just dump some in. There are also pellets and calcium chunks people toss into the tank when they go on vacation because food is time released over about a week. The downside to this food is that they are full of grain fillers, dyes, preservatives, and low in fiber. They're also hard to remove if too much is sprinkled into the tank, and you can't just have one kind of food for all fish and invertebrates, unless you only have one kind of animal in the tank, say only goldfish and no other animals. When you get a fish, frog, snail, shrimp, and so on, research that particular animal's food requirements so that you can provide the proper diet to keep them healthy. Proper environment and water chemistry is important, but that's another video. Let's look at an example. In my small tank, I have a betta, an African pygmy frog, and a mystery snail. The betta is an insectivore, the mystery snail is an herbivore, and the frog is an omnivore. So I feed the betta bloodworm, shrimp, and fruit flies. The bloodworm and shrimp come from frozen food, and the fruit flies are alive, and I keep them in their container from the pet store. They are wingless, so it's easier to grab them and put them in the tank. They fall into the water and attract the attention of the betta, and gulp, they're gone. I usually feed 2 at a time. I rotate the betta's diet. The snail cleans the tank and is on the move a lot of the time. He, or she, gets his lettuce or spinach or green bean, and I watch for a while to see if he's done with it. It's fun to watch him eat it. The frog eats what the fish and snail don't. He works to keep the tank cleaner, and if I think he needs to eat more, I'll put more food in the tank than the beta will eat. So, I have several types of food available. I don't use flakes. That's not to say you can't, but I don't. I prefer to feed them foods more like what they would find in nature. Fish don't eat grains, dyes, and preservatives in nature. Now, that's not to say you can't feed it at all. I just wouldn't make it their primary diet. The upside to flake food is that there are added vitamins and minerals. So what are the good and bad ingredients in fish food? Well, let's take a look at a fictional fish food label. Ground dried fish, yeast, rice flour, ground dried shrimp, fish protein, gluten, oatmeal, fish oil, soybean oil, algae, vitamins, minerals, dyes, preservatives. Most of the time, they will list the individual vitamins and minerals and preservatives. Most of the ingredients in our label can be found on most flaked and pelleted foods. According to my research, they're very prevalent ingredients. So let's look at the good and the bad. Common good ingredients are, for herbivores, leafy green vegetables, so therefore spirulina algae, which is a blue-green algae. For insectivores, bloodworms, mosquito larvae, fruit flies, brine shrimp. For omnivores, meat, feeder fish, shrimp, krill, bloodworms. For omnivores and carnivores, meat, feeder fish, shrimp, krill, bloodworms. Common things you may not want to feed your fish are grains. Why is it in fish food? It's a filler, and it could also be a good binder. The soy is used as a protein source. Fish don't normally eat grain. Granted, the omnivores eat nearly everything, but grains are genetically modified, so they may not be healthy choices for your fish. Preservatives. They provide shelf life to the food, but they may not necessarily be good for your fish. Try to avoid them. Dyes. Why do we need these? Fish can see their food, but they depend on smell more, so the dyes are more for the human eye than for the fish eye. Sugar. No, not for your fish. It's not usually seen in fish food, but if you ever do see it, avoid it. If you're interested in learning about pet nutrition, then be sure to check out Raw Food Diets for Dogs at the first link in the description. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos helping you feed your pets and more. And I'll see you in the next video.